World is commencing. Technical point first, has everyone got a ballot paper, because you will be invited to vote for directors? Anyone missing ballot papers? There's some missing over there. Mary, have you still got some? Some over there. Mary is coming round with some ballot papers. I'd like to take receiving the chairman's report, looking forward right at the end. We are under some time pressure. I'd like to get through all the essential business first, and then you can listen to me rambling about the future of the rigging world, ask questions, and so on. So thank you very much for coming to this meeting and supporting the Rigging World Limited. In terms of attendance at the Central Council meeting, there are 167 present. 5 people have declined to sign on to take part in this meeting. Mary has informed us of 30 apologies for absence, and if anyone wishes to notify us of any more apologies for absence, I'd be grateful if you had a word with Claire after the meeting. So the first thing is to approve the minutes of the 2016 AGM, which you all should have received. Any points of accuracy in those minutes? No? Okay. Have we a proposal then that they be approved? There, Kate. Thank you very much. So Kate and Angela proposed and seconded. Thank you very much. Those in favour of approving the minutes? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. So we now go on to my report for the year ended 31st of December, but first I should just remind you of the names of this illustrious group of directors. On our left we have Linda Garton, we then have Richard Smith, we have Bill Hibbert, Nigel Orchard, the chairman, Richard Wallace, Claire Ralston, our company secretary, David Grimwood, our editor Robert Lewis, very well known to you, and our assistant editor, as of November, Will Bosworth. So we have, in fact, commented extensively on our business activities in 2016 in the annual report, and I don't actually want to duplicate this to any extent. But just to summarise, the generosity of our donors in the last 2 years has enabled us both to increase our reserves and to invest in the business, both in the product quality and in the process. I hope you've been pleased with the content changes and enhancements made possible by the employment of a part-time editorial assistant, and I must acknowledge that Will Bosworth has made contributions to the company well beyond just supporting the editor. Major issues such as York Minster and the proposed Central Council reforms have been covered in a depth which is harder to accomplish in more transitory media, I believe. Replacement of the creaking IT system and improved IT support was essential and has greatly reduced a growing risk to the business. It's been done in such a way as to facilitate remote working. This means that we're no longer restricted to staff and volunteers who can readily get to our offices and might allow us to save money by dispensing with an office entirely in due course, although that decision hasn't been taken. I'm very pleased that the new software for the compositing has allowed us to move on from the scissors and paste production process that I remember from my days on the school magazine. Unfortunately, a number of technical problems have delayed our realisation of the full benefits of the new process. These are being vigorously pursued, and we hope to resolve them soon following which further production costs reduction savings should be realisable. I don't usually pick out individual board members for particular thanks, but Bill has gone way beyond the call of duty, even moving his office premises to our offices on a Tuesday in May, throughout May, to try and solve the many fascinating technical, mechanical and human factors that have been thwarting our maximum efficient use of the new compositing software. Thank you, Bill. Usage of Bellboard continues to soar, word chosen very carefully, year by year, clearly providing a highly valued and increasingly user-friendly service to the exercise. What is less clear to its many users is that it is also streamlining a number of our production and administration processes with cost savings and enhanced quality of service. Manual court appeal processing has already been greatly reduced, and a start has been made on doing the same for appeals. This entails our closing down peels.co.uk, as we have announced, but we take very seriously the need not to lose important record keeping and analysis functions as we do so. There's been consultation, as mentioned earlier, with council representatives about this, but we will respond to any further concerns that might be raised. Our Finance Director will now present his report and the accounts.
For the second year in a row, after several years of reporting a deficit, I am pleased to be able to say that the company made a surplus again this year. The detailed figures are on the last 2 pages of the report and are probably the most interesting ones. The net income of £15,635 is a good result and better than the directors expected. I say that because subscription income held up well at around the £183,000 level. We are still losing paper subscribers at a steady rate, but online ones replace some of these and, in percentage terms, is a high growth area. The modest increase in subscription rates did not discourage many from renewing, and the price is rarely given as a reason for stopping to take the paper. We had budgeted for the editorial assistant to start earlier in the year than Will was able to start, but I think his contribution in his first 9 months has been worth the wait. Returning to income, donations have held up well, but there has been a slight decline towards the end of 2016. We were able to claim some backdated gift aid going back to the start of Bellboard, following the full integration of donations with Bellboard, when the required box was ticked. Despite some production issues, which we are addressing this year, the diary and the calendar made a significant contribution of £8,703 to the surplus. The plan is also to have a new Christmas card available for those who still send such things. The surplus has only been achieved as the directors continued to keep tight control of costs where they can. That doesn't mean that we do not try to be innovative and attempt new things at times. The printing costs include 3 32-page issues and some extra colour pages, in particular the 8 centre spreads on training matters in the autumn. Franking is beyond our control but is steady. The final major spend is on salaries. The team of Robert, Chris, Will, Christine and Jackie all work well together in the office and produce the paper week in, week out, and keep the back office administration ticking over. There are also 2 other items I would like to mention. As Nigel has already highlighted, some computer costs were up this year as we decided to upgrade the IT system in readiness for the future. This involved new equipment and utilising the cloud rather than have servers on site in Andover, so we do not need to be tied to an office base in the medium term. We also now use a more responsive local IT person to deal with issues sooner than was possible with the remote volunteers before. The other is the accountancy fees for the independent examination. First of all, you may have spotted that our previous examiner did not sign the independent examination report this year. On the 1st of March, Don Valida transferred his firm to a larger firm, also with offices in Andover. Don and his staff all moved over, although the offices moved over this weekend. The higher charge is not because of this, though. Last year, more paperwork and regulation at the last minute meant there was a higher fee in the end than the account showed. Because of the consequences of changing things, we decided not to change the accounts, but that means that the 3,300 figure is inflated some extra costs last year, too late to include in those figures. The charge for this year's work was £2,800 in total. The agenda asks you to reappoint the new company, if that isn't an oxymoron, but we will look to hold a beauty parade before next year's AGM and look at alternatives. It's been a long morning and there's still many motions to go through later, so I'll stop there for questions before formally proposing the adoption of the accounts.
Right, we'll take any questions you may have about the accounts. Okay, no, clearly no burning issues. So, Richards, would you like to propose the acceptance?
Yeah, I propose the acceptance of the accounts.
Is that seconded?
Yes, and I second the acceptance. And I think we should all say as board members a huge thank you to Richard for all the hard work he does on accounting and budgeting.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to the appointment. Sorry. Let's vote on that then. Those in favour of adoption of the accounts, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thanks for the reminder. So those are accepted. Move on to the appointment of directors, where you have David Grimwood standing for the first time, Claire Ralston standing for re-election, and Richard Smith standing for re-election. So we have a proposer for David Grimwood. Would anyone like to second that? Thank you very much. Pardon? You don't think we need one? Well, it's all right. It has been seconded. And Claire has been proposed. Someone going to second that, just for completeness? Thank you. And Richard Smith has been proposed by David Richards. Have we a seconder for? Yeah. Okay, over there. Thank you very much. So you have your ballot papers. You may vote for all three because we have the ability to take all three of them on. So could I now ask you to vote, please?
A tick or a cross will do.
Yeah.
Nobody's interested in your vote.
All mine. Oi. Thank you.
Linda, have you got one as well?
Yes, I have.
And Linda at the end.
Okay. Thank you very much. The results of that election will be given later during the Central Council meeting, unless they come before. We now move to the appointment of an independent examiner, where it has been proposed that we reappoint. Have we a formal proposal for that? David Grimwood has proposed. Have we a seconder for the reappointments?
Yes, very happy to second that.
Yeah, well, there's someone at the back there. Okay. Those in favour of the reappointments, please show. Any against? Any abstainers? Thank you very much. I'd like, as I said earlier, if anyone wants to raise any other business at this point, before I start talking about the future of the ringing world as we see it, and greatly look forward to your contributions and observations about what we should be doing and where we should be going. But apart from the general subject of the future of the ringing world, does anyone else wish to raise other business? Fred, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Bone, Essex Association. Would you like to explain to us why the board chose to stop describing our paper as the official journal of the Central Council?
Certainly. First of all, I think we weren't actually quite sure what it meant and what it obliged us to do. We do feel very strongly that the ringing world has to be independent of the Central Council in order to be able to criticise where necessary and to present a full range of views relating to the Council, which would fit uneasily, I mean it's not impossible, but it would fit uneasily with actually being their official journal. That said, I think you can judge that we are very interested and supportive of the ringing world and, sorry, the Central Council. Well, we support the ringing world as well, you know. It's one of our part-time activities. And if you think back over editions over the last few months, the Central Council has had no trouble at all in getting the various things that the President has wished to say and other viewpoints from the Central Council fully aired. So it's really more to do with editorial independence. But let us also be absolutely clear that we take our obligation to be the journal of record very seriously indeed. There is a debate at the moment as to how official record keeping for the future should go forward with new technologies and so on. It must be recognised there is no obligation for people to send their performances in for printing, and in fact a fairly high percentage, I have the figures somewhere, of performances that are now submitted through Bellboard are also forwarded for printing. But that isn't, it isn't 100%. And I've heard a lot of observations that, well, we don't really care if it's printed in the ringing world so long as it's in Bellboard. So we do take the importance of the historic record very much to heart, and therefore we're in communication with the Central Council about how this is taken forward. Does that seem a reasonable approach? Anyone else like to comment about that? Kate.
Thank you. Kate Flavel, Surrey Association. Not a comment about that, but a kind of related question. I don't know if it's something you're going to cover in the statement you're about to make, but I wonder if you've had a chance to think about how the company structure of the Ringing World Limited might change in the light of potential future changes to the structure of the council itself.
Thank you. That's very important. We recently had an away day to think about the future of the Ringing World Limited, the charity which has the objectives of basically promoting bell ringing. And of course, for a very long time, the way that we have fulfilled that obligation is to publish the Ringing World. But we thought wider than that. We still do think it's very important to publish the Ringing World, but looking at declining subscriptions and so on, we need to think wider about how we fulfill the objectives of this charity. And at our away day, we actually had Phil Barnes. He was good enough to attend. So we're keeping in close contact with developments. And your point is a good one. We need to consider how we're structured. I will touch a bit more on perhaps how the changes to the Central Council will affect the Ringing World in a minute. Anyone else want to raise any other business? Okay, right, we'll move on then. Just starting with moving on from the budget, The budget is predicated on our achieving cost savings in the compositing area. That's the budget for this year, which are running late owing to the software problems that I referred to earlier, software and other problems. Likewise, cost savings from streamlining the appeal processing are being delayed by limited technical resources for implementation. We continue to look for further cost savings, but further reductions in staff costs are unlikely after the substantial reductions in recent years. We would be reluctant to reverse our investment in product quality. Would you like to comment briefly, Richard, about how we see the budget for 2017?
Yeah, the slide briefly summarises the budget for the current year and what the directors thought would happen this year compared to last year. I am by nature prudent, so will always be a pessimist on income, so you probably won't do as bad as this. We continue to lose subscribers each year, but the modest increase in rates usually makes up that loss, so income is stable. Donations this year included some backdated claims that won't be repeated in future years, and the actual figure coming in is slightly down month on month. Advertising continues not to be an easy sell, and we may lose Whitechapel's Business Now, for example. However, the director's efforts also tries to minimise expenditure where it can. After the investment in computer infrastructure that cost amount this year, this will reduce and has allowed us to continue to invest in the editorial team so that Will can continue to be employed after the initial trial. We have less control over the weekly costs of printing and franking, though. There could also be some surprises, but I am hopeful that the company will achieve a small surplus in the end for 2017.
Okay. Our new IT does allow remote working and possibly dispensing with the office, but the directors are not sure that this is appropriate for the highly consultative process of assembling, editing and compositing the contents of the paper, and we're looking further into this. Looking beyond this year to 2018, the highly provisional budget shows a deficit of some £6,000. One step we could take to eliminate this for 2018 and a year or two beyond, other things being equal, would be to reduce the frequency of publication to fortnightly. We have said we would give 12 months' notice of any change of this to the publication frequency, and we have the reserves to do this. The board considered this recently, but decided to spend more time on considering the implications, including the effect on our letters pages, which remain lively, though a much slower rate of exchange than social media. Alternatively, we could seek more donations with performances. That was the preferred way forward in the survey and has totally transformed our finances in the last 2 years. Taking out the effect of a catching up on reclaimed gift aid that flatters the 2016 donations figure, there is an underlying reduction of about 1,000 a year. This is not down to a decline in the overall number of performances, though the number of appeals in 2016 was down a bit on 2015, the number of quarters was higher, so the total of performances was up. Interestingly, the percentage of quarter appeals, which includes a donation at the suggested 50 pence per ringer, is about 70%, but the percentage for appeals is about 25%. I'm not sure why this is. Appeal ringers get a better display than quarter ringers, and this costs us more. There was a lot of discussion when we considered charging for printing performances, and we decided to stick, after that discussion, with asking for donations. Whatever you think about this approach, it emerged from discussion and was the preferred funding approach as indicated in our extensive survey. Could I therefore thank quarter appeal ringers for their support and ask appeal ringers who do not donate to reconsider? A higher percentage of donations might delay us having to take major cost-saving steps, like reducing the publication frequency. On present projections, the circulation of the printed version should not drop below 2,000 before about 2022. But we are aware again from our knowledge of subscribers' age profile from our survey that we really don't know much about above 65, and so we cannot rule out a cliff edge effect at some time. The big growth area, though from a low base, is in online subscriptions, currently at 281. We're now reviewing our pricing structure to ensure that all subscriptions contribute equitably to the fixed costs of the company. This will include reviewing our arrangements for overseas tower subscribers, where we've made some ad hoc arrangements for sharing of the online versions at towers where they also have a paper subscription. This is in recognition of the high cost of overseas printed subscriptions and to try and increase our low overseas take-up. We did, as you probably know, run a recent marketing exercise. We were so pleased with our May the 12th edition, which had something for everyone, that we made it free online, but after our subscribers had their copies. We had an extra 1,300 hits on that edition over and above what we would normally expect in a week, out of which I am aware of 2 new subscriptions being taken out. So the marketing of the ringing world is difficult. I have to say that with the current format, i.e. including the performances as well, which I know some people question, but again the survey seemed to back continuing with. I believe that Robert and his assistant Will have now achieved a very high level of quality and content. And I must thank also those of you who have contributed. We are dependent on our contributors for the material that we get. And we've had some damn good stuff recently, though I say it myself. Well done, Robert. Well done, Will. A business should invest in its successes, and Bellboard is certainly a runaway success. In a board all of whose members work hard and generally unacknowledged, it's invidious, as I've said, to pick out individuals, so I generally do not. But I think we'd all agree that Richard Smith deserves our recognition and thanks for his single-handed setting up and development of Bellboard. All its current services are free, and we hope to keep it that way. But we are looking to develop additional services that we can charge for. The problem is that Richard has found it very hard to find suitable people with the highly specialised skills and the time to carry out further developments. The board has therefore agreed that he may look for an IT professional who will do some development work part-time on a paid basis and has indicated a cost range for the first year. This is not in our budget, and a sum probably in the range of 10 to 15,000 would be paid from our reserves this year if we are successful in getting someone, but we would hope that it might become self-financing over a period. This would also alleviate the significant risk to the business if Richard became unavailable. We do have some kind volunteers who can and have fixed short-term problems with Bellboard that have arisen in Richard's absence, although we were able to get hold of his services even when he was off in deepest Russia. So he can't get away from us easily. Another uncertainty or opportunity in our future is what the council will become. Could the ringing world become a membership benefit? how would any new central organisation wish to communicate? Really is too early to say, so we have had discussions with the CRAG chairman and indicated our willingness to bring our communications expertise to whatever organisation emerges, but also stated our view that the exercise is not large enough to support competition in periodicals. A lesser consideration is what we should do about the proposed change of the Council's AGM to the autumn. It is mutually beneficial to us and Council members to have our AGMs coincident, but having it so long after the end of our financial year would make the information very dated and your ability, which we value, to influence the current year more limited. Our articles require us to hold an AGM not later than 15 months after the previous one. A move from the end of May into September would be just outside this limit. The board is considering this and will, if the Central Council changes its AGM date, bring proposals to the 2018 AGM. So we'll stay in touch about how developments go there. The board met on the 29th of April this year, specifically to think about the future of the company. And as I've mentioned, Phil Barnes came to examine the possible Craig outcomes and for his help in other aspects of our deliberations. Colin Parker, a former board member, also joined us. You won't be surprised to know there were no eureka moments, but a focus on our vision and mission, a la CRAG, our strengths and weaknesses, and our company structure. Clear actions were placed on individual directors with defined timescales to develop ideas in the areas discussed and bring them back to the board. Achievement of this and implementation of agreed plans will depend, as usual, on the availability of volunteers. We are always interested in talking to people with relevant skills who may be able to help us. Now I open the discussion to all of you. Anyone wish to make suggestions, comments, criticisms over there?
Tina Stuckland, Scottish Association. I'm afraid I don't have a question or a suggestion, but I would like to echo your words, Nigel, and congratulate the editorial team on what has been a fantastic year in the ringing world. And for those of you who come up to me and say, oh, what's going on? I don't get the ringing world. What's happening? What's happening? I'm not telling you anymore. Get your own coffee.
Anyone else want to comment? I know there's pressure on time. Yeah, there.
Neil Dodge, Suffolk Guild. This is probably more of a question for Richard. I just wondered what sort of features you'd like to see in Bellboard going forward, and particularly Bellboard's an excellent tool. I've used it right from the start, and it's definitely the future of the ringing world and how we record performances. And there are some excellent features, but they're often hidden deep either within the menus or not visible at all. For instance, I know you can export search results to Excel format, which has been incredibly helpful for me preparing our Guild quarter peer reports, and I think it would help loads of other members, but we just need to know about it and make it clear, you know, because it really is excellent, those sort of things, but a lot of not many people know about them. Thank you.
I think there are perhaps three areas that I can immediately think of that I'm either working on actively or wish to work on in the near future. The first of these is really quite underway, and I've never actually met him, but I gather Richard Hobbs is here. He's been helping me significantly with an updated user interface and a new style, hopefully making it easier to find functionality, making it easier to link directly to pieces of functionality that are currently, as you indicated, quite hidden. So that's one ongoing piece of work, and I would hope that that can be complete imminently. The second area that's going on at the moment is less advanced, is improvements to the analysis we make available. We want to make much better forms of statistics, data visualization and so on available. To give an example, it would be nice if you could plot on a map where all of your peels were, or to get better visualization of the number of peels you wrung in years as a graph perhaps, a variety of things like this. And some of these may well be part of the paid-for service that we're contemplating that Nigel alluded to a few moments ago. And the third area that I would like to see significant improvements to, and we haven't yet started, is the diary. I think the diary is an important part of Bellboard. It is a very useful way of finding out when your local district practices or other events in the area, and perhaps you're not in the habit of looking at your local association website every day, but perhaps you are in a habit of looking at Bellboard, if not every day, then once or twice a week. It is a useful resource, and it's not had the investment it deserves. There's a lot I'd like to do to improve that. There are other ideas as well, but off the top of my head, those are basically the ideas.
I hope this helps, and I hope you'll also feel that as the year goes on, you don't have to wait to come to this meeting, that you can push forward suggestions for development.
Andrew Johnson, Winchester and Portsmouth, Diocesan Guild. Could you explain briefly about the hard copy diary, how what the relationship between the ringing world is and the contributors, and how that gets assembled and how important that is to you?
Sorry, the annual diary that we issue. Yeah, okay. First of all, I must apologise for the quality of the diary this year. It is compiled by former director, now former president of the Central Council, Chris Mew. He does an excellent job. We were direly let down by the printer, a printer who we have relied upon in the past, still rely on for the main publication. And he's a print agent, and he thought he'd got a reliable printer. And it was only when the stuff came back that we started to realise we had problems, and we have been doing a certain amount of refunds for people. As a result of that, we've had a bit of a rethink on the diary. It does still earn us useful money, so we intend to continue with it, so long as there are, older gentlemen like myself who prefer a hard copy and usually enjoy the lovely, luscious leather one, but this year that was a bit of a disappointment as well. So we hope that we can prolong the life of that, continue to make a profit. We've had a little meeting with Chris Mew, myself and Robert, just to go back to first principles and say, what do you use this for? And it's not actually for getting up the tower to call a peal and looking up a peal composition in most cases. It might be at the last moment when you meet short you need something. And with Richard's help, we've analysed which of the methods that are in the diary are actually rung. And I think one of them, Cantuar, was it, which has been there for some time.
That wasn't the worst, but yes.
Yeah, it was really not something that people are going to want to have available in their pockets. So it is being revised, and we will welcome your comment. I feel perhaps I haven't fully answered your question. That'll do, will it? Okay, thank you very much. Over there, yeah.
Thank you. Clive Whittaker, Middlesex County Association, London Diocesan Guild. Firstly, I'll just follow your example of not picking on individuals, Nigel, by saying that in my view the whole board deserves our thanks and congratulations. I think you've done a fantastic job, not only in terms of the editorial quality and the improvements you've made this year, but also the degree of thought that you've put into your business plan and your business planning, which I think is really excellent. The suggestion or thought I had, it just occurs to me that you have as your readership a very valuable cohort of people. And of course, the Ringing World is not just read by its subscribers. Copies are left in towers, and the total number of people who read its contents are very much larger than the number of people who subscribe. It's therefore got a kind of an age profile and a financial profile, that cohort of people that would have some marketing directors, maybe not salivating, but certainly quite interested in the possibilities. And in the work we did on CRAG, we did look at other organisations making music, Royal College of Organists, a whole series of them. We didn't look at their journals. Our focus was on their organisation, the number of people in the executive and so forth. But anecdotally, I understand that quite a few of those journals, in terms of advertising, are looking outwards, not just at adverts from companies inside that particular community, but companies outside that community who see that target audience as being a good opportunity. And I just sort of wondered whether perhaps there is an opportunity to do some work looking at the experience of some of those other societies with their journals to see whether there's anything that could perhaps be learnt there. Might possibly need a slight tweak to editorial policy to make the content perhaps a little bit more inclusive. And I know you've been doing that recently with the work you've been doing on articles about what other non-ringing hobbies ringers have. Yep. So I just wondered whether maybe there's an opportunity there just to do a little bit of work and see what other organisations are doing.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'd certainly like to build our advertising revenue. If I remember correctly, it was at the last AGM that someone who I think had a background in the industry stood up and said, in effect, your profile stinks, and I wouldn't actually be advising anyone to advertise with a circulation of 2,700, and I forget how she characterised our readership, which is probably just as well. It does depend on volunteers with time and expertise. We have in the past tried to go with what we would regard as linked organisations for advertising, such as breweries. But I don't know whether they take the view that ringers couldn't possibly drink any more of their beer if they advertised. But it is a slow process, and it does take time. We'll certainly take your points on board, Clive. I will look to be able to resource this. It does need a certain sort of personality to be able to take the kickbacks and keep, sorry, not financial kickbacks, but the refusals and so on, and keep persisting. It's certainly not my profile, I'm afraid. Any other points anyone would like to raise? Because we do appreciate this opportunity for you to, Paul, down there, to give us suggestions.
Thank you. Paul Flavel, Surrey Association. Are there any plans for another roadshow in the future?
I think the short and succinct answer is no. Well, it takes a lot of organising, and I think we'll say what we'd do is bear it in mind. Not sure that what the role of the Ringing World is actually. Are we the Fons et Origo of all of this stuff, or Jackie Roberts organised the last one, didn't she? She led a committee. And she wasn't actually on our board at the time, was she?
I thought the Ringing World lent its name to the roadshow, the first couple to get it going, but then it became a council event.
Yeah, yeah.
Kate Flavel, Chairman of the Public Relations Committee. The Central Council and the Public Relations Committee have organised the last few roadshows. People still occasionally misdescribe them as Ringing World roadshows. The first one or two, I can't remember, were called that. One, was it? Just one? And then
Yes,
since then it's just been the Ringing Roadshow. The Central Council doesn't currently have any plans to organise another one, but as we will have heard this morning, there is a move afoot to change the nature of this meeting weekend into I hope I'm not making hostage to fortune here if I use the word mini roadshow. It won't be the same as what we've had before, but it might be something vaguely similar, and I'm sure the Ringing World will be invited to make a substantial financial contribution for their for their enormous stand that they will want at it. Yeah.
Kate, I am deeply obliged to you. Thank you very much. Before I announce the result of the ballot on the directors, anyone else want to raise anything, because we are under some pressure to wind up fairly soon, so you can go back to the real fun. Okay, thank you very much. I am pleased to announce that by large majorities, Claire, Richard and David have all been elected or re-elected. 157 countable votes were cast, and the numbers against were all below 5. So I think that's enough detail. Thank you very much then. I declare this meeting concluded.